Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started with our March 31st, 2025 meeting of the Fairfield RTM. Will the clerk take the roll? Ken Estorita? Here. Peter Britton? Here. Melissa Longo? Here. Brooks Baracino? Tara Cook-Littman? Megan McClout? Dave Rock? Here. Chris Shea? Here. Bob Ellinger? Here. Mike Hardigan? Here. Jeff Steele? Here. Cindy Waldron? Here. Laura Carson? Here. Michelle McCabe? Here. Marcia Spallier? Here. Liz Esma? Here. Josh Gaskov? Here. Kristen O'Neill? Here. Sharon Pastilli? Here. Jay Woke? Here. Rob Blanchard? Here. Nancy Donnie? Eric Truniak? Here. Alex Ocampo? Here. Steve Betts? Here. Lauren? John? Here. Scott? Here. Lenny? Here. Chris? Here. Christian? Drew Travis? Here. Lisa? Mark? Here. Here. Matt? Jeff? Margaret? Here. Here.
If everyone online could just mute themselves.
I hope we're not getting an echo with this, but
Let's all stand for the pledge, and I please remain
for a moment of silence for Representative Wackerman's mom, Diane Wackerman, who passed away earlier this month. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 2 on our agenda is to consider and act upon the minutes of the regular month. I apologize for the silence. Thank you. Item 2 on our agenda is to consider and act upon the minutes of the regular monthly meeting held on February 24th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Carroll, seconded by Representative Rock. Is there any discussion on this item from the body? Any public discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Representative Georgiades? The motion carries. Item 3 last week, we heard reports from the Arts Commission, so we will move on. Representative Horton coming up. Margaret Horton, District 10. I'd like to make a motion to combine items 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21. Do I have a second? Representative Waldron. So Representative Horton has made a motion to combine agenda item 4, which is the ground lease and land for Tungus Hill properties with Operation Hope. Items 5 through 12, which is water pollution control items. Item 14, which is non-reoccurring capital projects of the Marine Boat, Grassmere Playground, Rugby Park Playground, and Veterans Park Tennis Court, elevator replacement at Fairfield Ludlow High School, and the security upgrades. But item 15, which is the Barnacle workboat. Item 16, which is the fire apparatus and equipment. Item 17, which is the emergency radio project. 18, which is the roadway accessibility upgrades project. 19, which is the DPW vehicles, and 21, which is the town-wide facility systems upgrade. Do I have any discussion on combining these motions, not discussion on the items themselves? Seeing none, we'll take the motion to combine the items to a vote. Again, we're not voting on the actual items, just the motion to combine. All those in favor of combining the items, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? The motion to combine passes. We'll now move on to the item at hand, which is all of those agenda items I discussed. Is there any public or any comment from the body on any of those items? Seeing none, any public comment on any of the items that we have just combined? Seeing none, we will take the items on agenda 4 through 12, 14 through 19, and 21 to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh,
Sorry.
okay. We have a motion for those items. Representative Carroll, seconded by Representative Costello. We have the motion on the table. Is there any further discussion on this? Any discussion from the public on any of these items? Seeing none, let's take it off to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? All those items passed. Congratulations and thank you to all the department chairs. You're Mr. Papajos, you can go home. We'll move on to item number 13, which is to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled a resolution amending and reinstating a resolution entitled a resolution appropriating $4,125,000 for the cost of the Roger Ludlow Middle School turf field project and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation to increase the appropriation and bond authorizations by $990,000 for a total appropriation and bond authorization of $5,115,000 be and hereby is approved. Do I have a motion to approve? Representative Costello, seconded by Representative Carson. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Longo.
Melissa Longo, District 1. I just said last week in committee that during the presentation that this was an extreme oversight, not testing the soil, considering what our taxpayers have already been through in this town, to not have done the due diligence. Really is disappointing, and I hope that going forward this is not going to be a problem, because this is another very expensive, what was called learning lesson, and we should not have to endure this as a town. And our fields are in desperate need, so it's kind of a push-pull. I, as a mom of 2 kids who play sports, I grew up playing sports here on all the same fields. It needs to be done. I just am extremely disappointed in how this was all handled. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Longo. Are there any other comments? Representative Hardigan.
Mike Hardigan, great. I do have a lot of experience with.
You have to keep the button down now. I know we switched back to that.
I do have experience with moving soil on and off site for projects where contamination is involved. This probably, I think there were a lot of different ways to manage this project once the soil sampling happened. I really can't put this on either the construction group or the LEP. It doesn't feel like to me that anyone dropped the ball here. It feels like the town has nobody playing this position. So these environmental projects will come up, and just in general, it kind of seems like either nothing at all happens or we go completely in the other direction and overdo the remediation. Granted, this project is, the soil's been removed, and it's a school, and we all want clean soil at school. It probably could have been handled cheaper, and we're a town that handles so many things by committee. Volunteers, the people that I've seen put their resumes forward for volunteering for this town have been pretty impressive. And And we don't have a committee or anything like it to handle the actual environmental aspect that comes up, which is going to fall outside of what I'd expect out of a construction guy, certainly outside of what I would expect out of Parks and Rec head. And we don't have LEPs that are going to be personally invested in our projects the way a volunteer who lives in the town will be. They're taking these projects off an RFP, knowing it's going to be a low bid wins the project, and then they're in and out. So that's my comment. I'm going to vote yay. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hardigan. Any other comments regarding this item? Representative Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Chris Carroll, District 8. Just for the record on this, I believe this project was approved back in 2022. And to Mikey's point, why didn't they check it then? I think credit needs to go to Eli. He was taking a little bit of grief last week. Even though the project had been approved and moving forward, he thought, whatever reason made this happen. So I just want to clear his name on that. Third, and Bill, this is to you. I'd like to understand, we're being asked to approve dollars, and I can tell you every step of this project because I drop my daughter off next to that field every morning. And my understanding is they've already remediated this soil. So we're being asked to approve money that's already been spent. And is that something that there's within our charter allows that to happen, or how does money get spent that has not been approved by the RTM?
First Selectman Gerber. I don't think unfortunately, I think Mr. Becker's at the Board of Finance meeting.
I think that's a fair question. This should have been approved by this body before it happened, but it had to happen. We had to remove that soil. We didn't have a choice. So I can't really answer. There may have been some scheduling issues with that. But yeah, in the future, that shouldn't happen again. But I would like to reiterate what he said. This was approved, and this project started long before Eli was in that job. So whoever was giving him grief, that was a mistake. He shouldn't have done that. This was something that he took over and actually ended up saving us money by reconfiguring the way that we were going to remove that soil. But there were a couple of options. One was to leave the soil on site and create at Roger Ludlow Middle School, and that was decided that would not be acceptable. So we really only had the option of moving it off site. And he inherited this.
Thank you. Are there any other comments regarding this item? Representative McClough.
Representative Megan McClure, District 2. I think just to clarify, I don't think anybody's trying to point blame, and I think we just need to all agree that nobody wants to see a repeat of the blame game, which ended up with indictments. I think for the interest of transparency and accountability in this town, all of us as residents, of course, our school children that are playing on these fields deserve that we're going to have processes in place. So I think the purpose of this conversation was to make sure that moving forward, we're very acutely sensitive to the fact that this town has incurred and had to carry on its shoulders the burden of many mistakes and unfortunate learning lessons, that it's not about blame game. And we're all here working in municipal government, some as volunteers and some as department heads, and we're all here for transparency and accountability. And in the interest of protecting safe environmental impacts on all of our residents and children, moving forward, I'd like to urge the department heads really take into consideration some of these comments, that there be processes in place, especially for anything that happened over the years. I think it was on the record, it was rebuilt in 2017. So the thought was that anything that had been unearthed at that point would have already been accounted for. I think we just need to take tremendous effort to make sure that all those boxes are checked moving forward in the interest of transparency and accountability, and not in the interest of blaming anybody. I don't think that's what this is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McClough. First Selectman Gerber, you want to respond to that?
I appreciate what you said, Representative McClure. I'd also like to say that the frustration that I saw when a Ward turf field was put on a project list at $1.5 million, that was unacceptable because we now know that that's not a realistic cost. So we do need to be mindful of the potential costs of remediating all of these sites. Whenever we break ground, we have to be prepared for this type of issue. So we need our Board of Ed to be a little more mindful of the costs that they put into their whenever something's going to break ground.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the body regarding this item? Online, anyone on the body, just type your name in the chat. Seeing none, is there any public here or online that would like to speak to this item? If you're here in person and you would like to speak to this item regarding the middle school field turf, you can come on up to the podium, state your name and your address, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Suzanne Miska, 123 Rygate Road. I can't believe it's a $5 million turf field. I can't believe there's $1 million that we didn't account for. That pile of dirt sat there all winter. Second, this field already had been relayed with soil and sod and then ripped up to create a turf field. Like, at what point are we going to decide what we're going to do here? I mean, how much more are the taxpayers going to keep paying? I mean, $5 million a field. I hope that Parks and Rec are going to increase the fee structure for these fields so that at some point in time, this is going to be taken care of. But I think, you know, if you yelled at whoever was in oversight, thank you very much on behalf of the taxpayers.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public regarding this item? Public, if you're online and you'd like to comment, just put your name in the chat. Seeing none, I'll move back to the body. Any further comment from the body regarding this item? Seeing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 20, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled "A Resolution Appropriating $1,500,000 for the cost of the H. Smith Richardson Golf Course, Carl J. Dickman Par 3 Golf Course, and H. Smith Richardson Driving Range renovations project, and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation be and hereby is approved." Do I have a motion to approve? Representative Nichols, seconded by anybody? Representative Waldron. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Kuhn.
Hi, Representative Kuhn, District 7, John Kuhn. Is Anthony on the line?
I don't see Mr. Calabrese on the line, our Parks and Rec Chair.
Okay, last week I had asked him about alternatives for paving materials for the cart paths, and he promised he would be back in front of the committee tonight with that report. And seeing that he is not here, I'd like to make a motion to delay this vote.
Representative Kuhn has made the motion to delay this vote. Representative Carroll has seconded it. Is there any discussion on the motion to delay item number 20, which is the golf courses, both the H. Smith Richardson Golf Course and the Carl Jr. Dickman Par 3 Golf Course? Yes, Representative Estorita. We're speaking on the motion to delay.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ken Astorita, District Number 1. I have no problem with delaying it. I think that makes sense. If there's legitimate questions, I would just like to to ask, and I'm not sure if anybody here can answer it, is there any negative impact in any kind of a delay? Bill, can you, or?
For Selectman Gerber or Attorney Pierce, are you able to tell us that if we delay this, if it has any effect on the bonding or any other concerns?
I am not prepared to answer this question. So Anthony is on the Board of Finance call, a Board of Finance meeting. I could text him and ask him to join, but I don't know what the scheduling impact would be for that. I'll ask him to join as soon as he's done there.
Would it then be appropriate just to postpone the vote on this till after we've done other items?
We can, that would probably be better if he can join. I'll text him right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Representative Estrada, can you make the motion to change the order and put this after the parking authority?
Yeah, Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to defer a vote on the motion from Representative Kuhn to delay voting on this item until later in this meeting.
Actually, it's an amendment to Representative Carroll, so you didn't say to a date certain, so. You seconded it. So I believe we can amend the motion one time. So we didn't mention a time, so we can postpone till after the parking authority vote. Is that correct, Attorney Pierce? Yes. So Representative Estrada has amended Representative Kuhn's motion to delay, and he has requested to delay the motion till after the parking authority item. Do I have a second? Representative Pistilli.
See how well I said that?
Very excellent. Very excellent. Is there any discussion on this? Therefore, I'll take a vote to delay till after the parking authority. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Great. We'll consider that later on. Moving on to item number 22. The town of Fairfield shall apply the modified schedule of depreciation with respect to motor vehicles as set forth in 1263 of the Connecticut General Statutes for assessment years commencing on or after October 1st, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve? Representative Carson, seconded by Representative Galdenzi. Is there any discussion on this item? If anyone has any discussion online? Any members with any discussion on this item? Going once? Going twice? No members with discussion on this item. Is there any public comment on this item? No public comment on this item. Is there any members in the chat or any public in the chat? Okay, we're going to take item number 22 to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Betsy, if you could just read back the nays so that those online can hear them. And Representative Donnie is a nay. Push the button down or they're not going to hear you.
Steele, Longo, Astorita, Shea, Colburn, Britton, McCloat, Donnie. Anyone else?
All right, abstentions. I believe that motion passes. What's the numbers?
30 in favor, 8. 30 in favor, 8 opposed.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the item of the night. Parking Authority, item number 23. I told you we'd get to you soon. To hear and consider for the first time the following amendments to the Vehicles and Traffic Ordinance, Chapter 102 of the Town Code, to take effect as of July 1st, 2025, sponsored by Dave Rock, District 2, and Liz Zezima, District 4. The title of Article 1 of Chapter 102 is hereby amended as follows. Article 1, Parking Authority, Operation of Vehicles, Section 102-1, Creation of Authorities, Purpose is hereby repealed. Do I have a motion? I think Representative McCabe wants to speak to this.
Michelle McCabe, District 4. I'd like to move to suspend Rule 32 to allow the RTM to vote and approve this item tonight and to amend the agenda so that it reads, quote, to hear, consider, and act upon, end quote.
Thank you, Representative McCabe. Do I have a second to waive Rule 32? Moved by Representative O'Neill. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Estorita. And we're talking about the motion to suspend Rule 32, not on the actual item.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ken Astorita, District 1. I went into this with a pretty open mind. I like to think I'm an open-minded guy. I was against the DH in the National League, but it's kind of worked out pretty well. But I think this item, I don't think we should suspend the rules because, quite frankly, I don't think this is ready for prime time yet. As you've seen from a lot of the emails that have been flying around, there are still a lot of significant and important questions that I don't think we have thorough answers to just yet and need to be considered before an item of this magnitude, which fundamentally changes the structure of town government, is approved. So I am voting no on suspending Rule 32. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Estorita. Any other comments from the body regarding suspension of Rule 32? If you have a comment online from the body, Representative Steele.
Jeff Steele, District 3. Glad to have this microphone back. Wish we had it the other night. I think when we consider ordinances or changing ordinances, which are essentially laws of the town, we need to take a long, hard, thoughtful approach. What is the problem that exists? Like, what are we trying to fix? How are we going to address it? And how will the new ordinance or revised ordinance specifically work? And that is why ordinances and changes to ordinances are held over for 2 months before they get to this body. They need to be thoroughly vetted. A well thought out plan is developed. It is presented to our body. Members ask intelligent questions, as we all did the other night, from all angles, from all perspectives, and we consider the logic and soundness of the responses that we get back before we vote to approve or reject. As Representative Astorita said, this is not ready. This is still somewhat half-baked. It's certainly not fully baked. I don't think it was well planned out. It's not necessarily, in some people's minds, wrong, but the way we're going about this is not well planned out. There's still questions around revenue, expenses, surplus, capital reinvestment fund, in addition to the impact on efficiencies and the commuters themselves and our relationship with the state. There are a couple things that make me think this is not ready. I believe the chief operating officer said in an email on Friday that we were going to get new revenue numbers. Didn't he say in an email he was going to send them out today, new revenue numbers? I have 3 different charts here. One given to us a couple weeks ago, another given to us by the Parking Authority, and another that was in our packet from last week that I think the Board of Finance is discussing right now as we speak. They're taking up this issue right now. And I've gotten 3 different sets of numbers. I've received revenue anywhere between 1.17 million and 2 million. Expenses ranging between 1.05 million to 1.3 million, some with depreciation, some without depreciation. And in the budget, there's no line item for the expense. So there's 1.1 million in revenue. I don't know where the expense is coming from. So those are some questions still that haven't been answered. It's been said that operating expenses for next year will be taken from the reinvestment fund. I've heard that mentioned, the STIF account, but that money, according to the lease agreement, is specifically designated for capital improvements. This is about, yes, this is not about the bigger motion.
I think Representative Steele is pointing out what items are missing, so to justify, I'll give him a few more minutes to elaborate on that. Thank you.
32.
Yes. And
I believe Representative Steele is actually saying that items are missing from him to consider. So that's why he does not want to vote on it.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, for summarizing that for me. Yes, I'm stating some of the things that I don't think are fully baked, and that's why I don't think we should vote tonight. I think this should be voted on in April as it was originally planned. I did ask at the committee meeting last Monday if we could reach out to the state. I was told that we had not reached out to the state yet. And I said, okay, well, I will then do so. And I did at the end of last week. And I think you were all copied on this, but since the public...
Representative Steele, I'm going to ask you not to share all that now, though, but just say that you're missing something or not. You can share it later.
I asked a few questions, and the commissioner said, I wasn't aware of that situation. Let me have our council weigh in on this. And so all I'm going to say is that council, as you all know, reached back and said, well, there has to be a new lease that's going to be put in place if we dissolve the parking authority, with a number of stipulations and provisions in it. We haven't even, we don't even know what that new lease is going to look like. We don't know the revenue numbers. We don't know the surplus numbers. We haven't even established or confirmed that there's going to be this continued reinvestment account. What's going to go in it? And so I think there's just a lot of questions. We're not ready to vote on this right now. Let's vote on it in April. I'm not saying let's not vote on it. Let's just vote on it when we have all these questions answered and this is fully baked and planned out. And I don't think we're there yet. I mean, are all you're confident like this is ready to go? You have every question answered. You are certain about the revenue. You're certain about the expenses and surplus. I've got 3 different sets of numbers here. It's being discussed at the Board of Finance right now. They're still going through it.
Thank you.
So I don't think we're ready yet. That's all.
Thank you. Representative Garskoff.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Josh Garskoff, District 5. Could someone from the administration speak to the reason that we're being asked to waive Rule 32 and advance the timing on this beyond what we normally would do with a proposal?
So we've actually been looking at this for 6 to 8 months. I'll get into this later if this motion passes. But the reason is because we are in the middle of the budget season and we want a parking department in our budget and not a parking authority. And I'll get into the reasons for that in a minute when it's appropriate.
Thank you, Representative Bradsky.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Pierre Ratsky, District 10. So we've had several meetings on this, of course. The first being the LNA committee meeting, which was a while back. And I think during that meeting, all of us expressed surprise at the way this was operating and has been operating for a while, especially over the non-payment of the lease, which is $330,000. So we did express surprise, and we decided to postpone it already by one extra month than we had originally been asked to do. And so we've now had 2 full body meetings about this, where we've had the opportunity to ask many questions and receive much information. We've heard from the first selectman, we've heard from David Becker, we've heard from the current constitution of the authority, including Ms. Flora and the commission. And we've had many opportunities to ask questions via email and receive information in response. And I think we've received a lot of information. Some of the lack of total transparency, I think, can be attributed to the fact that this is not a proper department of the town. And that's one of the things that we're seeking to correct. So I don't think that we need any further delay, especially considering that we've had several meetings about this already, and considering the budget timing. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Britton.
Thank you, Moderator. Representative Peter Britton, District 1. I find it irresponsible on our part to be taking a vote on this issue prior to the Department of Finance having fully vetted it. I think it's honestly ahead of we're putting the cart in front of the horse. And so I strongly oppose acting on this at this point in time until we have had the Department of Finance fully vetted.
Thank you, Representative Colburn.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Colin Colburn, District 8. I would just like to point out that while this has been discussed within this body in various areas, I don't personally feel like I've gotten a ton of information. To Representative Steele's point, the public who are impacted most by this change have not been able to comment and really haven't been made aware of this potential change until very, very recently. So I think that's a very important thing that we are also missing here.
Thank you, Representative McCabe.
Michelle McCabe, District 4. I just want to say that I fully appreciate what our colleagues are saying about the time crunch with this. When I was first made aware of suspending the rule, I was very uncomfortable with the prospect of it. And I just want to share that it was primarily our last meeting that convinced me that this was a good decision for the town, primarily because what it seemed like, and I know we'll probably be getting into more of this if we move on to discussion, that a lot of the responsibilities are going through the town already: payroll, office space, IT, purchasing, insurance, auditing. I think we have a good grasp of certainly of expenses because a lot of them are going through the town. And so for those reasons, I feel comfortable suspending the rule, which is in our purview to do in order to vote on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to comment before I call Representative Longo up. There will be public comment today whether this passes or doesn't pass, and we will discuss this further, whether this motion passes or doesn't pass, so that we can give answers either which way. So Representative Longo.
Hi, Melissa Longo, District 1. I just wanted to point out that we as a body, as an RTM body, have not had several meetings. We had last week. The public did not know about many of these things until last week. And now there's this mad rush to approve something that, frankly, we have questions still that we don't have answers to, just like how we postponed voting on the golf course surplus and the investments that are being made until we can have Anthony's input on that. And that's a small portion of what we're dealing with. This is a huge change to our town government. And I, for one, still have questions, and I don't feel comfortable feeling like we need to vote on this today. I really don't get what the rush is. I think that we should wait till April. I think that we have a responsibility to really look over what we've been given and given a little bit more time. It just doesn't seem like there's a sense of, I don't understand the sense of urgency. So it's just, I don't feel comfortable voting to waive the rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Longo. I just want to make a point of clarification. This item was on our agenda in February and in March. At our regular meeting in February, we did hear from First Selectman Gerber, David Becker, and Attorney Pierce at our regular meeting, and it was on our agenda. Any other comments? Representative McCloud.
Megan McCloud, District 2. I got to be honest, I find it extremely disingenuous that we've got half the room, more than half the room, arguably, saying we've had several meetings of this when we've got at least 8 people sitting here that did not participate in this LNA conversation. It may have been on an agenda, with all respect, moderator, but it certainly was not discussed, and it didn't have the opportunity to get the full disclosure and transparency that arguably an item on an agenda would. I live in a world of rules and procedures, and waiving a rule, to Representative McCabe's point, is an incredibly sensitive decision, right? It should be reserved for absolute extreme necessities. And I am the first to acknowledge that there's things that are going to come up that are going to require us to shout, there's a fire, we've got to move, we've got to do something. Frankly, with all due respect, I appreciate the administration's perspective that it's about the budget, but I don't think the need to get a revenue of 1.1 million conservatively after maybe expenses that are not projected in the budget book qualifies for that fire. I do not understand the need to rush this through without just taking the extra month the way that ordinances are supposed to be done. There's a saying that we all learned as children, counting our chickens before they hatch. I have a real problem with the budget presentation, which was disclosed to the public, that includes the revenue but does not account for the expenses and where it's going to come from. I take exception to some of the statements that have been made about getting further clarity from last meeting. In fact, I feel very strongly I was further confused. I had more questions. We had more things that need to fly through you, Madam Moderator, to ask questions to Attorney Pierce, to the Director of the Parking Authority, to former interim CFO David Becker, Chief Operating Officer. Lots of questions, lots of constituent questions about this. And I just think it feels really pressured for something that we just clearly don't have the information on. The fact that we have very large discrepancies between spreadsheets, 3 different spreadsheets, as Representative Steele mentioned, means we're not ready. And I don't think anybody's ready to take a position that we're saying it's a problem. We're saying we don't know yet. And that's the reason why, in a normal cadence of events, you would have an extra month here to go through the discussion, answer the public's questions. A major issue that I take exception with is that we have all the information when we just identified 48 hours ago that we didn't even contact. The administration had not contacted a party in the lease. So we're talking about making a major departmental change pursuant to a historical lease that has since converted to month without ever actually getting the information from the state. That's leaving a party of a 2-party agreement out of the conversation. I can't think of anything more hasty. I think it's honestly a reckless standard that we'd be setting if we move forward and waiving this rule, because if we waive it now, what else are we going to leave it for moving forward? At that point, we might as well just eliminate the entire procedure and not respect it entirely. So for that reason, I take grave concern in waiving the rule for this. I'd really like more information. And I think we shouldn't be counting our chickens in the budget before we hatch what the actual expenses are. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm not sure what backup I got, but there's significant financial information about the parking authority in the backup we received for this meeting. So I think, to that point, this is the 3rd time I've gotten up on an issue where I've raised the point we want to delay. What do we need? The information we've been trying to get is one of the reasons why we believe we need to act quickly to Rule 32, because we can't get all of the information. We asked to get the contract with the Department of Public Works employee. We can't find it. There's a lot of stuff that we're not gonna get. I'd be very interested specifically what information we want that we'd get in the next month that we don't have today. Another point I'd like to make. These are the minutes from the LNA February 18th meeting. Represented was Ken Astorita, Lenny Berman, Michelle McCabe, Pierre Ratsky, Jeff Steele, Karen Wackerman. And I won't take the time to read it all. but all of this was discussed. I also watched the February 24th meeting today, particularly from hour 201 to hour 217. And again, I won't go through this. You guys can look at your own minutes. There are some things missing from the minutes, so I advise you to watch it. But Ken, you had 3 questions. I believe all those questions have been answered. Representative Steele, you asked, I think, very similar questions, and I believe all of those questions have been answered by Mr. Becker, by Attorney Pierce. So I'm hearing all this stuff, but when you go back and look at the facts, it tells us that we've covered as much as we can cover. It's been discussed for 2 months now. And the fact of the matter is, if there's more information that we don't have that we really believe we'd get, because that's the problem, what are we going to get out of this? Then let's move forward.
Thank you. Representative Pistilli?
Sharon Pistilli, District 5. I'm extremely grateful to have the microphones back. Through you, Madam Moderator, to Attorney Pierce, could you please speak to counting the chickens with the state on the other half of the lease?
Phil Pierce, Town Attorney. So the email that we got from the state indicated that they did not take a position one way or the other on the dissolution of the parking authority. The lease currently is month to month, so it should probably be updated regardless. The state did indicate that they could work quickly with us to finalize a lease if the parking authority is dissolved. So if it is dissolved, we would contact Connecticut Department of Transportation and work with them to finalize the lease. The items that are referenced listed in the email are things like insurance and the other things that are existing terms of the lease and that are actually referenced in what we have already. So from that email, I'm not expecting anything that's substantially different from how the town would operate the site or has operated the site.
Thank you. Representative Shea.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Chris Shea, District 2. I'm kind of new at this, but I'm a representative, and who I represent are my constituents in District 2. And I have a lot of emails from them that are wondering, what's the rush? Why are we doing this? And honestly, I can't really explain that to them yet. So I'd like to see this delayed and voted on in April. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the body of people that have not spoken first on this motion to suspend Rule 32? Anyone online? Who Representative Carson? Representative Zezima.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Liz Esma, District 4. Just wanted to follow up to Representative Britton's comments. The BOF is not vetting this. The process of vetting and approving is entirely the purview of this body. They have their own, financial point of view to look at how it affects the budget, but it is not in any way to vet this process, the purpose, or how the department will be organized. I want to also support suspending the rules. We have had not only exhaustive conversation, we have had reams of information. And I believe, as per what 2 other representatives have said, some of the outstanding questions we are faced with are exactly the reason I think it would be best to create this department. And I do want to take a moment to thank the Parking Authority for the work they've done. It is my understanding, pending any decisions that are made by those employees, that they will stay on, that the authority itself becomes an advisory body, and that there will be a seamless transition without any interruption to the services commuters have come to enjoy. And I think it will make the job that the employees of the that will become department employees will make their job much easier. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else that has not spoken for the first time that would like to speak? I think Mrs. McCloat or Representative McCloat wants.
Megan McCloat, District 2. I wanted to respond because I think my quote about the chickens was taken out of context, Sharon. What I was referring to is the budget book, meaning revenue without listing the expenses, which also goes back to Ms. Esma's point, Representative Esma, excuse me, that in terms of the Board of Finance purview, I think it's certainly within their purview to review something if it's been added as a revenue generating item out of nowhere. However, back through you, Madam Moderator, to Attorney Pierce, I guess I have to ask the major question, which seems at least on my side of the room, the elephant in the room. Why didn't we contact the state first? And well, I see First Selectman Gerber wants to answer, and of course that's great too. Any answer is great because I think that that's what a lot of our constituents are saying, that why wasn't the state included in this conversation to begin with? And an additional question, again, either to Attorney Pierce or First Selectman Gerben. We sat and heard from the representative from Parking Authority last week about the need for additional insurance. So when the state responded in the email, the Representative Steele referenced saying that, you know, we'd have to immediately look into a renewed lease and things like additional insurance. I think that's a major question. Is that going to change our liability coverage? Is that something that needs to be negotiated? Is that going to be an additional expense that has not been allocated for? Because again, I'd be remiss if I don't draw attention to the fact that the expenses are not actually articulated in our budget presentation. The expenses that are going to be absorbed, whether through in-services through the town, are just not delineated. So that's why there's a big question mark. So through you, Madam Moderator, if I can get answers to that question, why the state wasn't contacted and what the impact to our insurance will be and how it will absolve the additional insurance that apparently has been necessary for decades prior. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with First Selectman Gerber.
Thank you. The answer is the state was contacted. I contacted the chief of staff to the commissioner of the DOT. Her name's Leisha King, who I know. And so I don't know where that narrative came from. Her response was that they don't care. And that they couldn't understand why we had a lease that expired in 2018 and that it wasn't renewed for a longer period. It's been going month to month. So maybe someone can explain why the parking authority let that happen, because I think it's quite strange. So, you know, if we have a well-run parking department, that won't happen in the future because we'll have a town attorney on the case and reviewing it. Thank you.
Thank you, and Attorney Pierce.
So the one thing I'll add is that under the month-to-month lease, the town has the right to substitute itself as the party to the lease in place of the parking authority. So the town has that right by contract. The issue is that it's a month-to-month lease. So if Department of Transportation wants a new lease, they're entitled to a new lease regardless.
Do you have a follow-up? Come on up. Oh, I'm sorry. They didn't have an answer to the insurance question. I apologize, Representative McCloat. First Selectman Gerber, Attorney Pierce, do you have an answer to the insurance?
I don't really have an answer, but only from the fact that the parking authority at the last meeting couldn't tell us whether they already had their own insurance or whether they're on our insurance. And it sounded like they were on our insurance already.
So I guess the question was, because she did say they were required to hold additional insurances. Have we looked into what that is?
I think I'm going to postpone this till the discussion when this passes or doesn't pass, because it's a. I understand that you have questions regarding the insurance and point taken.
Okay, and then just if I could respond to First Selectman Gerber for his answer, because that is directly in conflict with the answer we got when we reached out to the Department of Transportation, who specifically said, and I quote, "This is the first I'm hearing of it." So it's either a tremendous breakdown at the state level, which perhaps might not be the first many of us have heard of that, or there's a major disconnect on what we actually think we're talking about, which I think again is further fodder for why this is just not ready for the primetime discussion that's being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCloat. Representative McCabe.
Representative McCabe, District 4. I just want to point out that Leisha King is the Deputy Commissioner, so who you spoke to maybe was somebody that wasn't informed just because of rank and file.
So just for the record, Alicia King is the Deputy Commissioner? Is that what we're understanding? Because I heard it was the Chief of Staff? Both roles, okay, because I think I understand from our email that the actual commissioner responded. So again, I cannot emphasize enough, there are too many questions around this that I think is worth discussing further. I respect and completely understand the party of a sublease being to Attorney Pierce's point, being somebody that can naturally be substituted. But I don't think anybody in this room has ever negotiated a landlord-tenant exchange without at least letting the landlord know. So I just think it's something we all need to take some pause in if we're going to set a precedent of waiving the rule.
Thank you. Representative Rock.
Dave Rock, District 2. We're just talking about suspending Rule 32 right now. That's all we're talking about, and I think that we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. I'd also like, I'm just going to keep it at that because this might be moot, okay? Because it might not pass or might not be suspended. So I think that we should move on and see what the vote is and then have the discussion.
Thank you. Representative Estrada, second comment.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ken Astor, District 1. I just wanted to comment because my name was mentioned earlier in the LNA meeting. I did ask for an item that I have not received a response on. I did ask David Becker for a cost justification for what a move like this would be, because it's not necessarily something that I'm against, particularly if it involves enhancing government efficiency. But I asked at the LNA meeting, and I also asked again at this meeting last week if we could get some sort of a cost justification. I still haven't seen that. And just one other comment. I do think we should delay because wouldn't we want to know what the provisions of that new lease with the state would be rather than assuming that everything should be fine, because isn't making assumptions what winds up getting all of us in trouble? So isn't it worth a month to wait to get a better understanding of that? Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Ludwig-Sack.
Christine Ludwig-Sack, District 8. While I respect everything my colleagues have said, I do think it makes sense we're not technically delaying the vote, we're going by the normal order. And I think there's still a lot of questions that have been asked. And even though some parties think we might not get that information, I think it makes sense to do our due diligence and have that 2-month window to see what comes back that might weigh into how we vote or move forward with this particular item.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions regarding this item? Representative Longo. Second comment.
Thank you for turning.
Thank you, Melissa Longo, District 1. I wanted to go back to the comment that Representative Carroll made about, however many questions that we might have and that, we might not get answers. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to ask as many questions as possible so that we can make the best informed decision for our constituents. That's why we're here. It's not just to pass it through and then ask questions later. We need to be informed before we decide. That's the whole point of why we're here, is to represent our constituents. The other thing is that we, as a body, are pushing this when we don't need to I don't know, we're trying to keep it on the schedule that it's supposed to be on. I don't see the point in rushing this. And I also think that the month-to-month lease, I believe what was articulated last week by the parking authority was due to COVID. And it didn't seem like it was a a problem with the town to have that month-to-month lease. And that's why there was that relationship back and forth with the town to be able to keep the parking authority going and to keep our commuters informed and to keep them safe. So I think that given the circumstances of the pandemic, the parking authority did what they needed to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding waiving Rule 32? All right, Representative Steele.
Thank you. Jeff Steele, District 3. Whether questions were answered and asked at the LNA meeting aside, we can have other questions. And I don't think all the questions were answered. It's not like, no, I'm good. They were all answered 2 months ago. I'm good. I have other questions. And I don't think the questions were completely answered because at that time when the presentation was provided at LNA, they themselves didn't have all the answers. They just said, this is coming down and we're going to get to your questions. You guys can ask questions and we'll answer them. So that's what we're doing. We're still going through a process of asking and answering questions that may or may not have been asked and answered at LNA. And just for one quick clarification, it was not the chief of staff. It was not the deputy commissioner. It was the commissioner. And for the public's benefit, it said 2 sentences. Thank you for your email. This is the first I am hearing of the proposed change, and we'll ask our counsel to review the questions posed below with respect to the lease that is in place. So the commissioner did not know, wasn't aware. We had not contacted. Maybe we reached out at one point, but I asked on Monday if we had reached out and if there was any comment, and the answer was no. There wasn't any. I lost my train of thought. The other thing is with we still don't have all the answers because we don't have the expense line item in the budget. I mean, where is that? So, I mean, that's another thing we don't have right now. Still questions.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? We're going to take it to a vote then. Oh, any public comment on the motion to delay the vote? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to speak. Please say your name and your address. To push down the microphone, unfortunately.
Oh, I got it. My name is Brian Haberly. I'm a commuter. I take the train almost every day. I was not aware of any of this until very, very recently. And I would highlight for this body on your vote to accelerate this, that is not the normal course of order. You are voting to accelerate. Your agenda says to hear and consider for the first time the following amendments. Now you want to change that to and act on. So you are changing your notification to the public. You are not giving the public the proper opportunity to be heard on this, to comment or to email or participate. I think you should vote against this, and your normal course of order will be put over for another month and then vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments on the motion to waive Rule 32? You'll have 2 minutes. Please state your name and address.
John Watkins, 70-year Fairfield resident, 40-year parking pass holder. And all I want to say is from everything I've heard tonight, first, thank you all for your service. But I don't think this would pass any corporate governance, having worked in New York City for 40 years. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Again, just state your name and address. Just have to push and hold. Hold the microphone a little closer to you. Are you pushing it down fully?
Right in the middle. Got it. Colleen McAvoy Lehrman, 257 Barry Scott Drive, Fairfield. I have to echo what the person recently said regarding the public and not knowing very much about this. To push this to act upon. I came here seeing the agenda before I came. I had no idea there was going to be anything acted upon. So I would strongly encourage giving the public a chance to digest this so that they can understand exactly what's happening here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Online, if you have a comment, just put your name in the chat. Seeing none, we'll move it back to the body. Representative McClure, I'll call you up if it's a response to something that the public said, but I've already asked that you've spoken twice, so, if it's not in response, then, or I will repeat.
Megan McClure, District 2, and I apologize. I know you're tired of hearing from me, but I have a question through you, Madam Moderator, to Attorney Phil Pierce, to the gentleman who very adequately questioned the notice issue. Have we adequately satisfied our notice requirement with this late stage adjustment to the item on the agenda? Is it your position that we have satisfied our notice requirement to the public if we make this change at this time?
Thank you, Attorney Pierce.
Yes, I believe we can, if the body does elect to waive Rule 32, I believe we can.
Any last questions on the motion to waive Rule 32? Seeing none, we're going to take it to a vote. The vote requires a 2/3 vote of this body, of those present. We're going to do a roll call vote. Betsy?
Ken Estorita? Peter Britton? Melissa Longo? Megan McClout? Dave Rock? Chris Shea? Bob Elwinger? Mike Hardigan? Jeff Steele? Cindy Waldron? Laura Carson? Michelle McCabe? Marcy Spalier? Liz Zesma?
Yes.
Josh Garskoff? Kristen O'Neill? Sharon Pastilli? Jay Wolk? Rob Blanchard? Nancy Donnie?
Yes.
Eric Juniak? Alex Ocampo?
Yes.
Steve Barretts?
Yes.
Laurie Galbenzi? John Kuhn?
Yes.
Scott Nickel? Raymond?
Yes.
Chris Carroll? Colin Colburn? Christine Woodwazak? Drew Georgiadis? Lisa Havey? Mark McDermott?
No.
Karen Wackerman?
Yes.
Matt Ambrose? Justin Contrado?
Give a thumbs up and said yes.
Okay. Laura Horton? Felix Brodsky?
Yes.
$29 in favor, 9 opposed.
So that passes with a 2/3 vote. Given that that has passed, we can now move on to the motion as agenda is amended. Do I have a motion to approve? You have that right. We're going to be taking a 10-minute recess. All right, everyone, we're going to resume. If everyone will have a seat. All right, to summarize, the motion to waive Rule 32 has passed. What that means is we vote on agenda item 23 tonight as amended. Do I have a motion to approve? Representative Georgiadis, seconded by Representative Rock. Is there any discussion or questions on agenda item 23, which is amendments to the vehicle and traffic ordinance, specifically the repeal of parking authority? Any questions? Representative Colburn.
Colin Colburn, District 8. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'll be voting no for this item. This business case, if you want to call it that, would not pass a business school case study if you were asked in business school, and it certainly would not pass in any, as one of the commuters mentioned, any corporate boardroom or any business environment, especially the one that I'm in. And the reason for that is because I do understand and want to acknowledge that there are efficiencies that could be gained. But those efficiencies are quite limited, especially when you compare them to what the potential what the potential future looks like once the parking authority is dissolved. And I see three things that will happen once the parking authority, or three things that open up more questions that we do not have answers to, but that is now gone. One, the parking authority today, it serves the commuter. It serves the commuter experience. The revenue that they get from parking permits, I am a parking permit holder, the revenue from that goes directly to the commuter experience. It is earmarked and appropriated directly to everything the commuter does once they are on, or once they are getting on, or once they are getting off the Metro North Railroad. Once this is dissolved, that goes away. Yes, some of it stays into a stiff account, but we've been given no guarantee that the surplus money will be earmarked towards the commuter experience. That is, it will be allotted likely to other initiatives within the town, which I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it is for the commuter. And there are a lot of commuters that are in this town. And it is a vital, as I mentioned in our committee meeting, it is a vital population demographic of Fairfield. So that's number one. Number two, there's currently a parking commission that exists today, and they are the voice of the commuter. They advise the parking authority on what they're going to improve in their capital plan. Where does that go? I know we've been told that they want the parking commission and the authority to stay on in some sort of advisory capacity, but I don't really know what that means. That's very ambiguous to me. And then the third thing, and I actually think this is something I hadn't thought of until last week during our committee meeting, but I was very appreciative of the parking authority's response to the way that they think about parking permit fees and some of the research that they do to make sure that we're in line and oftentimes below the fees of other stations along the railroad. And I don't know about you, I know I tend to be a little bit of a government skeptic, but anytime that government gets its hands on revenue, you know where that goes. It usually goes only upwards from there. So I have a lot of concerns as it relates to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Colburn. Representative Aratsky.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Pierre Ratsky, District 10. I'm a commuter. I commute to the city most days, so I know how important the proper maintenance of these lots are. I take the Southport train. And I just want to clarify a few things. Currently, the Parking Authority operates a quasi-independent body with its own commission that has unilateral say over the Parking Authority's doings. But it's still, I say quasi-independent because it has an office at Town Hall, and it still uses a lot of town resources. For instance, it operates its payroll for its employees via the town system, and it does not have an independent employer ID for tax purposes. So it uses the town's resources to manage its payroll, then it reimburses the town. That seems very inefficient to me. And so that's one of the impetuses for this change. And there have been some other issues as well. There was a lease payment of $330,000, which they simply declined to pay the town back in 2021. And this was based again on the unilateral say-so of their commission. So this is one of the reasons why we believe that they should operate as a town department, as all other departments of this town do operate. It's not dissolving, and I want to clarify that. It's not dissolving, it's being made into a town department. And we've heard that there's no intention to have any employees change, and the commission would stay on as an advisory board. And I think if this was done in reverse, there'd be opposition to that too. Say if we wanted to take the Parks Department and make it this kind of quasi-independent, in limbo agency. So I think about this in terms of balance of pros and cons. And the pros of keeping it the way it is, I'm struggling to see. I don't see any particular advantage to having this authority operate in this quasi-independent fashion. And that's not to say that the people who are operating now are not doing a good job, because they are. And they obviously care about these resources. But I just don't see any unique value to having this operate in this fashion versus, again, all of our other town departments operate as an organ of the town government. And that provides for increased efficiency, increased transparency, increased oversight, and increased responsiveness to constituents. On the other hand, the cons of keeping it this way seem to me to be great. There's the issue of the month-to-month lease, which doesn't make any sense from a business standpoint, from whatever standpoint you want to put on it. There's confusion over duties, where the town operates versus where the parking authority in its quasi-independent status operates. There's inefficiencies, like I mentioned about the payroll system. It's not as transparent as could be, and there's not as much oversight. There's not, the town resources being put to bear into this authority, for instance, the town attorney. And right now, they're sitting on $2 million in surplus that they're not investing into capital improvements. So there's more that could be done there. The pros to the new structure seem to me to be great as well. There's the increased efficiency we've talked about. The weight of the town resources could come to bear for the employees of this body. They will have the extra clout and the extra weight of our resources when they're going to put out bids for capital improvements, or they're seeking tenants for their commercial leases. And again, there'd be more transparency, more oversight, more ability for the town to operate this body for the benefit of commuters. The cons that I've heard from the other side about switching to this new system seem to me to be hypothetical and not realistic. The town would still have an obligation to maintain the properties, and that's under the lease currently, and that would be under the new lease, with the town substituting as the party. There would be no, disrepair. The lots wouldn't fall into some state of dereliction. And there'd be an intent to invest even more. Again, they're sitting on $2 million in surplus right now. More of that money could be invested into capital improvements and making the commuting experience better. Again, the employees would stay the same. It would really just be absorbed into the town as a department, as any other department in this town operates. And so I think the balance of pros and cons on both sides really do favor taking this step. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis.
Hi, Drew Georgiadis, District 9. I'm going to be voting yes for this. I commuted for 15 years. My husband is still commuting, and it's 40 plus years. And we got notified by the parking authority because we park there. We have our lease and our cars are things. So I have been aware just as a citizen, and that's sort of what I'm speaking to. I was sort of shocked that there's $2 million because I agree with Representative Colburn. Where's the efficiency if they're floating $2 million? Like, that's way over. Are they overcharging me and all the other commuters in town? I don't know. So, and the fact that some just guy picks up the trash seems the liability for the town. Just these days, everybody is very litigious, and let's just roll that into the town. The town already does 80%, so rolling the extra 20 in to me seems smart, efficient, good business, good for the taxpayers, and I don't think the commuters anyway, maybe they'll notice, but I think it's a good thing. So I'm going to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. First, Selectman Gerber, I should have called on you first. So I don't know if you want to come on up and answer some of these questions that have been asked and also just give us a little bit more information.
I would like to just make a statement. So I trained as a CPA and auditor with KPMG and Arthur Andersen, became a chief financial officer of some pretty big and complex companies. So in my work mentality, DNA is an unwavering commitment to look at things in our town, operations that don't make sense, put the town at risk, or detract from leveraging our town's assets to the fullest extent. Making structural changes in any organization, especially in municipal government, can create some unease. I wasn't expecting to hear some of the feedback I'm hearing regarding transitioning Fairfield's parking authority into a parking department. Given our recent history with insufficient town oversight and controls that led to the fill pile scandal, there's no world that I can imagine that a parking department won't provide a better service for commuters than the authority currently does. I'm amazed that some people think it's okay to have any town body managing core infrastructure, and parking is core infrastructure, collecting millions of dollars with virtually no full-time professional oversight. As wonderful and dedicated as the 5 volunteers are on the parking authority, all of whom were appointed either by myself or Brenda Kupchik, they are just that, volunteers that meet about 12 times a year. There are 2.5 full-time equivalent employees working for the parking authority, led by Eileen Flora. Eileen reports to the 5 volunteers on the authority who meet about 12 times a year. I believe Eileen Flora appears to do a very nice job with very few resources of her own, pulling in resources from the town when and where she can, when and if town employees are available. But I cannot say for sure because I have next to no insight or visibility into the parking authority's operations. I don't believe anyone in the town administration does. Regardless, I want to make sure that everyone knows what the parking authority in Fairfield is and how it differs from a parking department, which is what most municipalities in Connecticut have, and what we will have if this resolution passes tonight. As dedicated as I hope and believe Eileen to be, I am confused by anyone who would think the current level of professional oversight for the parking authority is adequate. My administration has made a number of significant and somewhat difficult changes over the past year. We've exerted greater influence over the Water Pollution Control Authority to make sure we rebuild our deteriorated sewer infrastructure. We have allocated significant resources to this effort, both human and financial. So we have a track record. We have moved our traffic authority out from under the police commission into a new traffic authority comprised of engineers, planners, and enforcement experts. Not easy to do. Not everyone liked it, but it was the right thing to do. We are treating construction management as a discipline, distinct from engineering, developing a separate group laser-focused on tight controls over major construction projects, oversight, communications, change order requests, and finances. Not everyone liked that, not easy to do, but it was the right thing to do. So the way our parking authority functions makes no sense for a town the size and complexity of Fairfield. If this resolution passes tonight, what will be the difference between a Fairfield parking authority and a Fairfield parking department? Eileen Flora, Director of Parking, will no longer report to the 5 volunteers comprising the parking authority. She will report to the head of the Department of Public Works, or DPW. I have already told Eileen in words that leave no room for doubt that I hope and expect that she and the 1 full-time and 1 part-time staff who report to her will lead the new parking department. There is no logical reason I can think of why she and her staff would not stay. I have already written to the RTM about my intention to propose to the Board of Selectmen that we approve a charge for the creation of a parking advisory committee so that we continue to have the appropriate level of feedback from commuters.
A parking department will leverage, without having to strike informal deals with town departments, the core competencies and resources of fellow departments under DPW, including the building department, construction management, and engineering departments. The parking department will utilize legal services provided by the town attorney. The town attorney has not reviewed the authority's lease agreements in the past, though he was apparently supposed to, according to the Parking Authority's governing documents. Had the town authority been responsible for the authority's legal work, we might not be working month to month off a lease with the state that expired in 2018. As a department, the town attorney will be responsible for negotiating a new lease with the state, and the state has indicated it is ready to do so. The town has no insight into how the $4,854 per month rent for the Pachi restaurant premises in Southport was determined, or any other leases and with lessees. But as a department, there will be more transparency regarding these leases of the train station, retail, and restaurant spaces to ensure we are getting a market rate. The town has no insight into why the parking authority did not renew the lease with the Southport Conservancy for the freight station. The Southport Conservancy raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to rehabilitate and maintain that 1870s historic building, and the authority abruptly refused to renew this lease without explanation. The town has no insight into the authority's purchasing processes, how it bids and awards contracts, or how it manages contractors. Larger parking authority projects are discussed in executive session during authority meetings. A parking department will be subject to our town's purchasing, bidding, and bid award processes. Construction projects will be overseen by the appropriate parties under DPW. Paving, striping, HVAC installation, renovations of leased spaces, these are core competencies within Fairfield's DPW. These core competencies will be leveraged by the parking department like they are for every other department. The core competencies do not exist within the parking authority. My first exposure to the informal arrangements with the town that the authority currently relies on came over a year ago when I received complaints about litter at the Fairfield Center train station lot. One email from a resident stated the following, quote, "The town should realize that for many stepping off the train, this is the first thing they will see and associate with Fairfield. First impressions are everlasting. I suggest someone from town walk the parking lot, which is loaded with garbage, broken bottles, and weeds growing in between cars. We also need lines painted for commuter parking on the town side, as it is hard to see outlines for spots. I'm not sure who is responsible for all areas, but just take a look and put yourself there every day." This email led my office to inquire about who is responsible for garbage pickup at the train stations. The head of Parks and Rec thought it was DPW. DPW thought it was the building department. Ultimately, we learned the following from Eileen Flora, director of the Parking Authority, quote, "Our maintenance person spends extra time every Monday morning cleaning up trash that blows against shrubs, walkways, and platforms from weekend concerts and Sanford/Miller Street events. When there's more than our maintenance person can do, we call upon DPW for assistance. Thanks, James." That's James Ryan. "Please note that this is a continual issue we encounter, and we greatly appreciate James's support," unquote. We later learned that the authority's reliance on DPW personnel working off hours for the authority could present labor union issues. Parking infrastructure should be viewed as crucial town infrastructure, deserving of sufficient resources. All of the key functions required for a first-rate parking infrastructure should be formalized. The parking department, if this resolution passes, will be subject to internal audits. It will follow town human resource policies and hiring practices, will have access to the town's IT department, and follow its policies. A parking department will develop an annual budget and be part of the town's budgeting and review processes, allowing for greater transparency than currently exists. One of the reasons that the numbers regarding parking have been elusive or have changed is because the parking authority does not provide transparent budget numbers to us. I did ask the parking authority director to present a budget during the budget process, but she was not inclined to do so because it was not something that she was used to doing. I don't know if that budget exists. A parking department will develop a short, medium, and long-term capital plan that will be reviewed and approved by the relevant town bodies. Large projects will be included in the town's capital planning documents. Parking should be and will be under my administration more than train station lot maintenance and lease agreements. With all of the commercial and residential development taking place in Fairfield, traffic and parking should be an essential part of town planning. That includes our town planner and director of economic development. The authority focuses on the Fairfield Central and Southport train station lots, but we need to look at parking issues in town more broadly. I respect the members of Fairfield's Parking Authority, who are all volunteers, for their hard work over many years, but this structure is no longer adequate for a town the size and complexity of Fairfield. And I would say when it comes to pricing, to answer some of the concerns about rates, I do agree that we have stockpiled, or the Parking Authority has stockpiled $2 million of funds, and that would logically translate into overcharging, in my opinion, for parking fees. So I can't say for sure what parking fees should look like. Again, we have very little transparency into how those fees are derived. But thank you for your kind attention. I'll take any questions if anyone has them.
We'll go back in order. I'm going to have Representative Horton come up, and then we can have people make seconds too. Great. Representative Estrada.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ken Asterita, District 1. Bill, can you guys tell me about this $2 million that I keep hearing about? Where is this money?
In the Parking Authority's bank account with the town.
So it's just sits there and does nothing? I don't get it.
They draw on it when they need it.
So they use it for their operating expenses?
They use it for operating and capital expenditures.
So
you can see their capital expenditures have been minimal. Yeah.
So I saw, based on what was provided in the backup, and there seems to be some difference on some of the numbers floating around, but it looks like their annual expenses are what, about $1.1 million?
I don't believe so. I think it's closer to $500,000. You mean including the lease payments they're supposed to make?
I'm just going off of the revenue and expense numbers that I saw in the backup.
I think their own expenses, from what I understand, and one of the difficulties is we don't really have good numbers from.
And they also have a stiff fund that is basically the intent of which is any surpluses from year to year supposed to be used for capital projects?
They do have a stiff account, and they are supposed to use some of those, maintain some of those funds for capital projects.
So in the past, so in the 40 odd years that the Parking Authority has been in existence, all the revenue that they have generated, surplus funds, all of those are earmarked to be spent on what I'll call like commuter related projects. Is that correct?
I can't tell you because.
Are you aware of, like, have they ever spent any money on putting sidewalks in the downtown area? I guess.
Not that I know.
Question. Okay, so the money has basically been earmarked for commuting expenses.
As far as I could tell, most of it's been sitting in an account, and when you say earmarked, it's sitting in an account. I don't know what it's being used for.
So then the question is, once this becomes a town department, so any revenue that's generated, the town can theoretically use it for whatever it wants, correct?
No,
so if it needs to move trees or something like that, it can do that.
Well, the town has to use a portion of it to maintain the parking lot.
Right, but you could use those funds for other town needs, not related to commuting, correct?
Well, if there's surplus on top of what we need to put aside into the accounts used for maintenance of the lots, we can take that. Yeah.
Right. So you could do whatever you want with it, right? You could take down trees, put sidewalks in Greenfield Hill, whatever the town decides it wants to do with those funds, right?
Or we could reduce the rates.
Or you could reduce the rates, but here's the thing, right? There's no guarantees for any of this.
Well, there's no guarantees that the parking authority is going to use those funds because they've been sitting there accumulating and there haven't been any major capital projects.
My understanding is they put in an HVAC system. They've got some other projects down the road.
Minor implementation.
So there's not going to be any other major projects coming down the road.
There will be. Have you been to the Southport train station lately?
Yes.
The parking lot there needs to be repaved.
Okay.
It needs to be lined. Yeah.
What about 5 years from now? Do we have any idea what projects are going to be coming down 5 years from now?
Well, I haven't been running the parking authority, but I've seen what they put forward last month or last week.
Right.
They have a list of. It's mostly paving projects or the major things.
Right, but if we look at the recent history, or at least for maybe like the last 20 odd years or so of this town, we can see one of the major areas of neglect has been on some of the capital projects. Right. There's no denying that. And
which capital projects?
The whole litany of capital projects that are on the waterfall. Some of them that we just approved a $6.1 million bond issue from, relatively minor project, but consolidated them all in a bond issue. So, my point is there is no more guarantee that the funds that the parking authority generates today, which go to support costs for commuters, are going to be used for them in the future. So, my word of advice to the commuters, some of them are out here, get ready, folks. You know what's coming. Thank you.
No, that's just, that's unrealistic. I don't know why you said that.
It's not unrealistic. It's just fact because there's no more guarantees.
I would just like to say that that's a slight on the administration.
I'm going to ask you not to do that. You can't make assumptions like that, Representative Estrada.
We're spending $100 million to redo the Water Pollution Control Authority. So we are willing to spend money if there's money needed. I've never looked at our parking lots as anything special. Have you?
Well, I look at them as places where people park their car.
Yeah.
And they don't like to have potholes.
Well, do you think we're going to have potholes because the administration's...
We might, because something else might get prioritized ahead of that. Well, that's my point.
We still have to put money away for paving,
right,
for these projects. So I don't really know why you think that's going to be a problem.
I'm not going to assume...
We pave our roads, we pave our parking lots.
I'm not going to make any assumptions, but
it sounds like you are making assumptions.
I would just leave it to everybody's. I would just leave it to everybody's judgment on what they think might happen to these funds as we move forward. Thank you.
Well.
Thank you. Are there any other members that wish to speak? Representative Pistelli. People in order of speaking, and if they want to ask questions, he can come up. And then for like those three of you that went ahead of time, if you want to come up your second time and ask him questions, we'll make sure everyone gets their questions answered. You can come on up. It's your first time speaking. You can ask anything you want regarding the parking authority.
Then can I come back later to make a statement?
You can come back a second time, but I would recommend you get what you want now.
I'm just happy there's a microphone. Okay, Sharon Pistelli, District 5. Through you, Madam Moderator, to First Selectman Gerber. Is it, and it perhaps to Attorney Pierce, I'm not sure. Could you explain the scenario under which the state could take back some of the surplus that the parking authority sits under? Like I had heard that discussed and I just need a primer on that.
Attorney Pierce is going to answer that.
So under the state lease, the surplus that is derived from the properties the state leases to the parking authority, the state has the right periodically to come in and request 50% of that. My understanding is that's never happened, but they have that right under the existing month-to-month lease. And that's only as to the properties that are leased from the state, the surplus arising from those properties.
And is it possible that those lease terms could change when the lease is negotiated by the town? Because this is something that the town attorney has never reviewed, right?
That's my understanding. I would expect that they would keep that provision in the lease. I mean, I don't think that provision is going away. But it's there in the state, although they've never asked for it, they could ask for 50%.
Okay, thank you.
Want to make a comment now? Go ahead.
Okay, so briefly, I'm voting in favor of this because I do think it's really important that we have this authority turned into a department so that we have the expertise of our town department heads overlooking the functions where appropriate. I do think that it's problematic to have a member of the DPW being paid by the town's payroll system for work that's happening outside of work hours while using that person's own equipment. Like, my understanding is that this person brings their own equipment to pick up trash at the train station, which creates an even bigger liability problem than if you had someone who was on the town payroll using the town's equipment to pick up trash. And this is something that an HR professional would take a look at, or a risk management professional would take a look at and say, it's not appropriate to use your personal equipment for town business. And it creates a very muddy water in terms of whose liability is whose if something were to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCloud.
Megan McCloud, District 2. Through you, Madam Moderator, I'd like to ask the town clerk to repeat back what the original motion was, because my recollection, I believe it was Representative McCabe who made the motion, and I believe it was a combined motion to waive Rule 32 and to update the verbiage. Is that correct? I got used to the Zoom room. To hear, consider, and act upon was the change to the verbiage on the agenda. And that was a combined motion with the motion suspension of Rule 32. Okay, so I'm unfortunately going to have to raise a point of order. I'm concerned we're in violation of Rule 8 and Rule 33 as a result of taking that combined motion and not updating the formal notice requirement as required by Rule 8, which reads all items must be included in the warning of a regular meeting must be received by the clerk's office before 10 a.m. And of course, the warning shall be sent by mail at least 5 days before the meeting, and a copy of such notice shall be published in a newspaper having circulation in the town. That being said, the combined motion changed the verbiage, which has not been recirculated for notice on behalf of the public. We did already vote on waiving, or as you said, suspending Rule 32. However, Rule 33 reads, any matter not on that warning for a meeting, except an honorary resolution and matters previously held in committee, may be discussed at such meeting, but shall not be acted upon or voted upon until the resolution stands over on one meeting. It is my opinion, through this point of order, Madam Moderator, that we have combined the motion and therefore have not satisfied our obligations with the warning posting in the newspaper.
Thank you. Attorney Pierce, do you want to come up and address that?
The item was included on the warning that went out. This is just an amendment to the language in the item. So I don't think either of those rules is invoked. If you have a concern, you can make a motion to suspend those rules.
So I think my concern, just to be clear, is that of course the item in the concept was posted in the agenda, but the substantive impact, which was changed to add the words to act, which of course may arguably, speculation, I admit, but may have changed the turnout of the voters and the constituents and of certainly the commuters. So my position is that by changing the verbiage to add the words to act, we have substantively changed the item on the agenda, and therefore the warning may have been different.
So, this body has frequently amended agenda items and not suspended those rules. The language in the two rules that you're citing deals with items and matters. It does not deal with amendments to those items, which is what we had before us in that item. I think the only rule that needs to be suspended is Rule 32.
So respectfully, Attorney Pierce, just because the item from the agenda reads to hear and consider for the first time the following amendments, it does not include that we were going to be acting and voting on it. And by combining the motion the way Representative McCabe did, she added the waive of Rule 32 with the change of the verbiage, and therefore the notice may have changed.
I don't think, the item is still on the agenda. I don't think you have to waive those two rules. You're welcome to make a motion to suspend those rules if you think it's necessary.
Well, I wouldn't be making an argument to suspend the rules. I'd be making an argument that we're in violation of them.
We're going to take Attorney Pierce's opinion on this and move on to the item at hand.
Well, if I can just ask him what he meant by me moving to suspend the rules that I'm saying we're already in violation of. Perhaps I'm missing something, I apologize, but I wouldn't move to suspend.
If you're saying that those rules need to be suspended, I'm saying you're welcome to make that motion. I'm telling you, I disagree with your conclusion. They need to be suspended, those two rules.
And again, I just want to clarify, I'm saying I think we have perhaps missed the mark and we did not move to suspend them, which I think is what effectually happened by combining the motion. That we have de facto moved to suspend something that we never voted on. Because in proceeding forward with this vote, we're in violation, I argue, with Rule 8 and Rule 33, and we did not vote on that. We would have had to move to suspend those in order to proceed with this vote.
Thank you, Representative McCloud. We're going to take the town attorney's opinion on this. Do you have anything to discuss regarding the parking authority?
I guess my question is, does Representative McCabe want to amend her motion so that we don't have any constituent liability that may be represented by the fact that someone already raised the question of a notice issue?
It looks like Representative McCabe is shaking her head no. She wants to take the word of the town attorney.
Okay. So last question, through you, Madam Moderator, to the town attorney, that we're going to move forward, even though it's on the record that there's a concern that we're in violation of the rules, that we're comfortable moving forward pursuant to your opinion, that we're not going to have any liability in violating this rule.
I don't think those rules are being violated with the suspension of Rule 32.
Thank you for putting that on the record. Now I will continue into my comments on the parking authority. In the issue of brevity, I cannot stress enough that I feel that we pick and choose and cherry pick which rules we want to suspend at the time it suits our political agenda. I think that's really unfortunate for
Can't discuss the actions of the members in a negative connotation that way or assume their actions.
Understood. I think it was a general statement in general in terms of our government. However, with regard to the parking authority, I think in the issue of brevity, we're not going to sit here again till 1 a.m., I hope, and run another record, but I think it cannot be stressed enough that we still don't have documents that line up. We've been accused of arguably being speculative, but I can't think of anything that's more speculative than putting something in a budget that accounts for revenue and does not account for expenses. I think we've heard a lot of questions about the people that actually utilize this service as commuters. I know many of our members have already identified that we all share amongst those concerns as people who utilize the commuter services themselves. I think we have major concerns in moving something so fast that we don't have all the information on, and we're just assuming that the in-kind services are going to be absorbed in a way that we're not really willing to quantify in a transparent way to the public. I think there has never been a historical issue raised about the way that things are operated with the parking authority. We hear this one-off issue raised about one individual employee. I take great exception to that. Representative Pastelli mentioned that an HR professional would identify the risk management in that. I mean, it's a very easy risk analysis. I can say that as an HR professional myself, that somebody who already goes through town payroll does not incur any additional liability as a result of doing additional duties. It would have been something negotiated with their union and certainly would still be covered under a workman's comp claim. The liability of a slip and fall in the parking authority might not necessarily change as a result of this departmental shift. I've reiterated it at the committee meeting, and I'll reiterate it again. The only thing I think we can guarantee that we see here is that this is an argument to claim revenue without willing to quantify the expenses, and I just think that that's reckless. I think that we run into an issue. It might not necessarily be a problem to absorb the parking authority as a department, but I think I'd much rather vote on it and support knowing I have all the adequate backup. I think we've already raised on multiple issues that there's concerning
contradicting information in the backup. We have contradicting information from the testimony from the parking authority director. Even tonight, we have contradicting information that has come from First Selectman Gerber as well as Attorney Pierce. We just don't have a clean item in front of us. And I think it's unfortunate if we consider adding a department that we don't know exactly what's in its closet before we agree to clean it. So for that reason, I'm not in favor of observing this department. And I, again, cannot emphasize enough that I'm incredibly disappointed in our inability to follow the rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Carson. Oh, I'm sorry, First Selectman Gerber, I don't know if you want to respond to that.
I just want to make the point that, and Attorney Pierce can comment if he would like. I contacted Attorney Pierce many months ago after my first meeting with the head of the parking authority. I felt uncomfortable with them, with the way it was operating. I did not understand why why the parking authority was trying to negotiate a discount on their lease payments. They came into my office and said, we're prepared to pay you $250,000 for a lease payment that was supposed to be over $300,000. I did not understand where they were coming from. And getting into the details of how they operated, I felt very, very uncomfortable that I had no insight and that almost nobody in town has any insight into the operations of the parking authority. So I contacted Phil Pierce, I don't know, 8 months ago, many months ago, and I said, we need to really look into why we have a parking authority in a town that has 2 lots. Parking authorities, if you look at, I don't know how many of you have read the state statutes, but they're really geared around revenue bonds and issuing revenue bonds so that you can acquire property and build infrastructure. There's no point to us having a parking authority. So if anyone really thinks there's a point, feel free to get up and say so. But most towns in Connecticut, most municipalities do not have parking authorities. Stamford, lots of parking facilities. They have a parking department. Most towns have parking departments. Those with parking authorities are large. They issue revenue bonds. They have substantial infrastructure that can provide all of the in-house, like New Haven, you can have all of the engineers and the planners, they work for the parking authority. But we are 2.5 people that draw on resources of the town in order to do their job. It does not make sense. It is, and as I said early on when I sent my email out, it's mixed in between. It is not a true parking authority, and it's not overseen by the town, which should make anyone involved in any sort of financial oversight who has any background in that nervous. And I am nervous. It has nothing to do, my concerns it was long before the budget season, and I asked Phil to look into how we dissolved this parking authority. So you may make the link to revenue, and I've heard people call it a money grab. That is not why I started this process. I started this process because of internal controls.
Thank you, Representative Carson.
Hi, Laura Carson, District 4. I just want to put an end to this idea that we're usurping power to take away from the commuters' experience, and this, as to Ken Astorita's, Representative Astorita's statement that, look out, what's going to happen. If you really think that our first selectman is going to take money and just stick it in the general fund and ignore the parking facilities in our town, I really think you really are misguided in that belief. This is just purely, it's really a mythology attempt to just put this under the town's control. And I really, Bill has always said that this is what he did in his personal private practice in his career, that he oversaw and This is what he does, and I really believe that he's really attempting to accomplish that goal of his, what we see with the WPCA and different things, and he really wants to make this more efficient. It's just in name only, basically. It's going to remain the same. He's going to have an advisory committee. He is not going to just ignore the commuters and our parking lots. He's just not. It's just not going to happen. And if he does, he'll have plenty of complaints. He will be forced to turn over the money that you think he's going to throw in the general fund and never spend on them again. So I just implore you to don't use scare tactics. And people we got a ton of emails, but they really didn't understand what was happening here. And whatever misinformation, they really thought it was a power grab, and they really thought that we didn't want to do our due diligence to take care of the parking. And I just believe that it's all about good intentions here, and I hope that we can rest upon that idea, and I'm going to be voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Carson. Representative Steele.
Jeff Steele, District 3. So I'm going to make a little preamble first. As you all know, we are here to represent the people of the town. This body considers a range of issues that come before us, and we certainly don't agree on everything, and that's okay. We each have strong opinions on the matters we vote on, opinions that are right or wrong, or on what is right and wrong, on what is necessary, what is frivolous, what is common sense, and what is complex. We consider issues on their merits, but sometimes, not always, politics can shade our thinking. And when that happens, it's unfortunate that it can create a divide with this body. But most importantly, we should vote based on our constituents and our town in mind. And as I stated Monday, I care a lot about this issue. I commuted to New York City, as I mentioned, for over 20 years. I was appointed by the state Senate to serve as the vice chairman of the Metro North Commuter Council during several of those years. My opposition to this item is not based on politics or trying to be a thorn in the administration's side or to oppose an initiative just to oppose it. I want to make that clear. My opposition is based on the fact that this has not been well planned out and there's still many questions, and I don't see the net benefit. If nothing's going to change, why are we doing it? But after an extensive discussion on the subject last Monday night, I want to make a few points, and I ask you to please consider them. There seem to be three reasons given to us why we're doing these changes. One is that the administration has expressed frustration with the parking authority over the authority's supposed lack of payment of rent to the town. We heard on Monday what transpired over the last several years, but I want to reiterate because the public's listening as well. The original lease between the town and the parking authority was for 20 years, 1988 to 2008. It was revised in 1991, which is what you saw in the document Mr. Pierce sent. Payments for the bond payoff ended in 2008, and a new 10-year payment schedule was set up through 2018. The next few years, the CFO, Bob Mayer, handed off payment settlement to the town attorney, Stanton Lesser, to negotiate with the parking authority through 2021. There was no lease in place. It ended in 2018. The parking authority had asked for a new agreement since the old one was done with the town, but at that point, CFO Mayer did not respond. After that, 2021 to 2024, former CFO Jared Schmidt and CAO Tom Bremer met with the parking authority annually to negotiate the rent payment year to year. But a new agreement still never was put in place, even though it was asked for by the parking authority. And I don't think everyone knows that story. There is that side to tell here. That could have easily fixed the situation. There is no lease between the parking authority and the town. What was sent to us by Mr. Pierce is an expired lease. It expired in 2018. There has not been any new agreement. It is now a negotiation, which I'm not saying is right or wrong, but it has been a negotiation in lieu of an agreement. And during COVID, the parking authority was suffering with revenue. They asked for that number to come down, which was what the administration did. And this was all bipartisan. So there is no, like I said, there is no lease. And I think it was even asked that we put an agreement together between the parking authority and the town this year or last year when the new administration came in. My understanding is Mr. Becker did not want to put together an agreement and just asked for a set amount of, I think, $333,000. That amount's been paid. The second thing is that there was a mention of inefficiencies between departments. The parking authority pays the town about $120,000 for their services for the parking authority, IT, DPW, payroll, police, etc. There is money that is paid to the town for those services. Now, the work that different town departments do will still happen under this new structure. So where is the efficiency gain? They're still doing the work. The money is still passing through. The issue of garbage next to this situation seems to have been addressed by a worker who spent 5 days a week, not just 1 day a week, cleaning up litter that probably was from FTC and midnight partiers in all likelihood. People don't throw trash over the platform when they commute. There's garbage bins all over. No one's going to take trash in broad daylight in front of other commuters and throw it over. In any case, he never used his own equipment or doesn't use his own equipment. And so the town is the one that requested that this goes through payroll. It was the town who said, well, let's pay this guy through payroll. The park authority could cut a check instead, or more so, I understand that the parking authority chairman mentioned to me that he had even talked to the Fairfield University campus ministry, said they would do it for free. Problem solved. Further, the parking authority is an enterprise fund, meaning its expenses are supported by its revenue. It's already efficient in that. In and of itself, the whole concept of an enterprise fund. There is zero cost to the town right now. There's no cost. How is it going to be made more efficient? There's no cost to the town. It's self-supporting, self-efficient. In terms of oversight, I heard there's no transparency, there's no oversight. The Connecticut Department of Transportation provides this oversight in lease. It approves of spending on capital projects out of the reinvestment fund. The parking authority has a strong relationship with the state, utilizes an approved vendor list from the state that expedites maintenance, creates efficiencies, and streamlines project approvals and execution. So, I mean, there is oversight. The oversight is from the state. The other issue, we keep talking about revenue and expenses. There's about $1.056 million of revenue. That's 1,200 parking spaces, permit and day parkers. 400 of those are state-owned. 800 of them are town-owned. My question is, I guess, and maybe at the end I will lead to that question, but if there's 1.1 million of revenue, and there's around $900,000 of expenses, which is, well, I only really have that one sheet. We'll use the latest sheet presented to us by Mr. Becker. So that would be 1.1 revenue, 900,000 expenses. It's around 200,000, give or take. That is supposed to go into the reinvestment fund, which is a short-term investment fund, according to the lease with the state. That is month to month, but it's the same as other towns on the corridor. They have month-to-month leases. New Haven, it's been renegotiated. But the issue is not that we can't renegotiate a lease. Yes, as Mr. Pierce said, yeah, that can be done. There'll have to be stipulations. But the point is, where is this money? This money should be going to the capital account, and the capital account is doing a lot. They complete over $900,000 of capital improvements in recent years. HVAC, paving, security cameras. The paving alone of this main station, that was $500,000. It was not bonded. Money wasn't given from the state. It was taken out of the fund. They're looking at another $450,000 capital improvements over the next year, including paving Southport lot, which could be $250,000. So that serves a purpose. And my biggest concern is that I keep hearing general fund, and then there's no general fund. I know that Ms. Charlton mentioned general fund at the Board of Finance meeting last week. I think they're discussing tonight some elements of that, at least in preparation for what may happen tonight. But This can't go into the general fund. The money can't go into the general fund. The surplus has to go into the reinvestment account. And I think that's why the state raised its eyebrows saying, well, I didn't know about this. We're going to have to renegotiate the lease and put those items in there. Now, the cash account, it was a $1.8 million account. How much time do I have? $1.8 million account that's been paid off. The recent rent payment was made, so it's $1.4 million. What is that used for? That's used for expenses. Those expenses are fit for fiscal year 25, the remaining, and then into next year. That money pays for operating expenses. Any leftover goes into the capital account for all these great projects. Yes, the state can take 50% of that if there's any disaster along the Metro North line. When the bridge collapsed in Norwalk, they could have taken money. They didn't take any money. I don't think any money's ever been taken. It's a stipulation in the lease. Maybe that gets renegotiated. But the point is that 1.4 million is used for operating expenses. So we're talking about very little revenue. So what are we really doing this for? For the revenue? For like $100,000? We've already talked about efficiencies. There's already plenty of efficiencies. And then I also want to mention real quickly is the commuters, and they've been brought up here as well. They've spoken, we've mentioned them. They deserve a commission through which they can speak and provide input. They're a commission. We have over 15 commissions in town that the public can attend and provide input to. Arts Commission, Conservation, Fair Rent, FairTV, Fire, Golf, Harbor Management, Historic District, Human Services, Land Acquisition, Parks and Rec, Police, Shellfish, Solid Waste Recycling, Town, Facilities, and TP&Z. Why do we not have a parking commission for a large commuting population? And there are 2,000 passes that are sold every year. There's more than that commute. That's a pretty substantial part of our town. We've received close to 30 to 40 emails from commuters. All but maybe 2 are supporting the parking authority because they like the structure. It works for them. They have a voice. The commission decides on parking rates because they are closest to the commuters. If the town takes this over, the commuting experience will certainly change. Commuters' voice will not be heard the way it is now. Plus, parking fees can be raised at any point to be used in other aspects of town spending. So we need a separate dedicated fund for capital improvements. We've already talked about the state and not violating the lease. I hope that Mr. Pierce does that, should this be approved, but we need to maintain the reinvestment account so these projects can continue to happen. There's the saying, as you all know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The parking authority runs efficiently now. It generates a surplus and it satisfies commuters. Isn't that what we want out of the parking authority? It's been working this way for 50 years. Why risk changing a functioning system without clear benefits? So there's unanswered questions, financial uncertainty, and commuter dissatisfaction, which all point to the same conclusion. This change isn't needed. There haven't been enough reasons to do this. It has oversight already. We discussed the negotiation issue and why that happened. Well, let's put an agreement in place. And we follow the lease with the state as we put that together. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't see any of the benefits and the pluses for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Steele. Representative Gerber, did you want to answer anything on that, or are you good for now? I don't think there was the question. Yeah, Representative Horton.
Margaret Horton, District 10. I'm not going to take too much time. I just wanted to, as Representative Steele said, we are here to represent the people of the town. And I would imagine that there is not a resident in town, and myself included in that, that wasn't just horrified by the fill pile issue that we as a town are continuing to deal with. And I appreciate the First Selectman's remarks about the whole presentation, parking authority. I think they were really compelling. I'm not going to rehash all of the points. The thing that he said that really resonated with me was that idea of internal controls. because I think that's what has led us into trouble before, right? And this is exactly why I think it's critical to move forward with transitioning from a parking authority to a parking department. I think that our town's recent history really unfortunately demonstrates the need to increase the internal controls across the board. So that's why I'm going to be in favor of this.
Thank you, Representative Horton. Representative Longo.
Melissa Longo, District 1. I just want to say that we're all in agreement that we need to represent our constituents. And that being said, this parking authority is in place for the commuters. And we've gotten overwhelming support for keeping the parking authority, which directly affects the commuters. So it seems like common sense to me to keep the parking authority the way that it is. The inefficiencies that have been described here tonight have been minimal. Someone who's working overtime to help clean up the community, and that was already taken care of. I don't feel like that is enough of a red flag to say that the entire parking authority works inefficiently because of one incident that made certain people unhappy. I also don't believe that, we're paying enough attention to the people who we all got the same amount of emails. And some districts actually got more than others because there are districts in this town where more commuters live, closer to the beach area, District 8, things like that. I know that they got some emails separately than the rest of us did. And it would be really irresponsible for us to ignore those because, this is why the parking authority is here. We're supposed to listen, whether or not we agree, whether or not that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to just go with what the administration says today and do it that way because that's not right. And this is where things get political. I just don't, I don't see how this is going, more government doesn't work. We've already had oversight. I feel like the internal structure of things and saying that we need to have more, it's basically saying we need more control because we want to allocate funds for other things to be able to have that opportunity. And I don't think that there's a well laid out plan to say that, yes, the surplus that we have for the parking authority is going to go directly there. We've heard that there is an intent for that, but there's nothing written about how that's going to be. We talked a lot about assumptions. That to me is a very, very big assumption. We don't have any clear communication or an outline plan that's saying just that. To keep the voice of the commuter heard, we're hearing a lot of, yeah, Bill's not going to do that. That's a big thing to say, to speak for the first selectman, to say he will or will not do something. I want to see it in writing. I want to see, I think what every other commuter here wants to see is that you are going to be represented in the same exact way that you're being represented now. Because if this is just a lateral move, it makes absolutely no sense to me to do this. We don't know what's going to change in the next couple of years. We don't know what's going to change in the next 5 years. And once we make this move, there is no going back. And that's the thing that bothers me. So I don't understand, again, the hastiness of this all. I mean, talking to the town attorney for 8 months about the parking authority and changing it, to me, for something that's been working for for decades without incident, except for one man picking up garbage. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm just going to call it what it is. I think the fact that we're even spending time on this in this body is ridiculous. I think that, if we're frankly to say that, just to Representative Carson's point, this kind of, I don't understand Representative Carson saying that she doesn't think that the constituents and the commuters understood what was going on here. They understand. They articulated that very clearly in the emails that we received. And to brush that off is not okay with me. Our town bodies are largely made up of volunteers. We are all unpaid. We make significant decisions in this body that significantly impact our town, just like why we're here tonight. Same goes with who the parking authority reports to, who Eileen reports to, is the 3 or 5 volunteers. It's the same thing. So whether you have somebody who's overly qualified or not qualified enough, I mean, we're all here on a voluntary basis making large decisions for the town. And that's just, another situation where volunteers and people in our community can come together to be heard. And that's who Eileen reports to essentially. And, you know, we don't know what the structure is because it has not really been laid out for us of who's going to be protected in the parking authority. Are the commuters going to have the same voice? Because I'm just hearing a lot of talk and I'm not seeing a lot of substance. So I will be voting no.
Thank you, Representative Longo. Are there any other comments? Representative Carroll.
If I can borrow on the chickens and the Hoosiers, I forget what, you had the chicken, somebody else said something, isn't it down? Yeah, I'm just not talking loud, it's rare, John. I think the proof is in the pudding. Everything Bill spoke to earlier has not always been the most popular thing to do. By the way, on the camera ordinance that we spoke to last month, consumer input to us, our constituent input, was about 3 or 4 to 1, and you voted against it. So, you know, I think it's qualitative, but it's not quantitative when we get this information. We voted tonight through the consent for $13 million for the sewer programs. Because in 2018, we were told we had a critical issue, that it could hit the fan any day, right? And nobody sees it. My toilet flushes, it works. I don't see any leaky pipes. You know, if I do go to the recycle center, it stinks, but you know, that's all I have to deal with. So we sometimes have hard issues that we have to deal with. And I, for one, have confidence in Bill because of his business experience and what he's done to date. And the idea that we continue to want to kick things down the road, apparently we can't always do that. And so I would support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Representative Carroll. Are there any other comments from the body? Anyone online?
Matt Ambrose.
Representative Ambrose speak. Sorry. Yep. Go ahead, Representative Ambrose.
Okay, I just wanted to make the comment that I never heard about a surplus being a bad thing, especially a $2 million surplus. Another thing, I drive by the parking lot in Fairfield Center, you know, almost every other day, and it's completely clean. There's no garbage, anything like that. So it seems like they're doing a good job with the upkeep. I don't know. I'm kind of I'm with Representative Steele and saying that if it isn't broken, you know, let's not fix it. So I just you know, I was a commuter too, and it seemed like the rates that they were charging per day per parking were more than reasonable. So I think this is probably something that we don't need to address. I'm gonna vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ludwig-Sack.
Christine Ludwig-Sack, District 8. I guess I definitely came into this very open-minded, and to be honest, I'm still a little torn. So I think First Selectman Gerber did a wonderful presentation. That was very good information to get, just a lot to digest for this evening. I think I actually have a fair amount of questions still, but I know we're all in agreement that we're voting tonight. And again, I just think that this is something that you know, to be doing due diligence to the constituents. And like Melissa said, we had a significant amount of emails that are opposing this situation. Representative Carson's correct. They very well might not have understood what the consequences or what the situation is actually occurring. And I wasn't able to explain it to them. So I don't feel like I did a very good job on that front. And I think that it would have been beneficial to all of us if we had maybe a little bit more information either last week or had a little bit more time to digest all the information we received tonight.
Thank you. Representative Zezima is online.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Liz Desma, District 4. I just want to clarify a couple of things for the public and especially commuters. It is absolutely not true that they will have no one to contact. The same 3 positions, perhaps the same people that occupy them now, will be employees of the town, will be a town department. So, and the advisory body will also be available to people. So I don't want commuters to leave this meeting with that impression. I could tell by many of the emails that people who had concerns were basing them on misinformation, however that happened. And I think those questions and concerns have been more than satisfactorily answered. And I will finish up by saying that I think exercising our authority as a duly elected body, given our independence, we have separation of powers, is not ridiculous and should never be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Zezima. Representative Donnie is online.
Hi, Nancy Donnie, District 6. I just want to ask, I looked all over for this, but I don't see where the parking authority meetings that are 12 times a year, where the public is invited or there's even an agenda or minutes published, which, leads me to believe with all this discussion of the commuters won't be represented. How are they now?
Thank you. I can ask if you want to ask through you how they notice their meetings. We have both the parking authority chair and the head of the parking authority currently here. Would you like that, Representative Donnie?
They can answer it if there is an answer, but I'm just contesting the fact that I don't think
to come up and tell us how your meetings are noticed, when they occur, how you have them scheduled. Oh, you have to push the button. Thank you, Ms. Fleur. Push and hold. Your finger's gonna fall off.
Is this better? Okay. Eileen Flora, Director of Parking Authority. We notice all of our meetings the same way as any of the other boards do. We send the agenda to the town clerk, who then posts it under the Parking Authority's webpage, and then our minutes are usually sent within a week. And they are also put on the same website as any other. If you look on the town website and go to the Parking Authority or go to the agendas and board minutes, and you go down, you'll see the Parking Authority, and then you'll be able to see all of that.
Thank you. Do you have any follow-up, Representative Donnie?
No, that's where I was, and there wasn't any meetings and agendas, but I don't want to debate it. I was just saying it wasn't easy for me to find, so I'm sure the commuters know where to find
If
it.
you're in a different place, because they are definitely there, because after we post them, we always double check them.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions regarding the parking authority, this agenda item from the public or from the body? Representative Rock.
Dave Rock, District 2. I just want to sort of address something. I think that, the town is perfectly set up to pull this entire thing in. They will do it flawlessly. They do it well. They do it well with all the other departments. They have the capability. They have the staffing. They have the oversight. They have everything is there. And this is simply just people changing the name from the parking authority to the parking department. There's really nothing else there. I want to sort of harp on one thing. The town would not simply redirect revenues elsewhere. The funds generated from the train station parking lots, including the daily parking fees, the permit revenue, and other parking related income, would continue to be tracked, audited, and earmarked for consumer services and facility maintenance. If the parking authority is dissolved, its responsibilities would be transitioned into a newly created parking department that would operate under the Department of Public Works within the town's organized structure. The new parking department would assume all the current functions of the parking authority, including the management of consumer lots, enforcement, maintenance, coordination, and revenue collection. All existing parking authority employees would be retained and then transferred into this department, ensuring that there is no disruption to service for commuters and the general public. The change would be seamless. Placing the parking department under Public Works strengthens coordination for services like snow removal, facility maintenance, and infrastructure improvements, areas where the DPW already has operational expertise. It also ensures that the department is part of a well-established management and oversight structure, providing an additional layer of accountability. Financially, the parking department would operate like every other town department with full transparency and oversight. Its budget, including both revenues and expenditures, would be reviewed and approved by the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, the RTM. This means all of the uses of parking revenue, whether for personal maintenance or capital needs, will go through Fairfield's standard public budgeting process with documentation, public input, and regular audits. This change would actually increase transparency and accountability. Today, the parking authority operates as a quasi-independent entity and its own financial structure and has less direct public visibility. By moving its operations into the town's departmental framework, residents would gain clearer insight into how parking revenues are collected, allocated, and spent, and all under the oversight of elected officials. If needed, the town can establish internal safeguards such as dedicated funds or accounts to ensure that parking revenues, related revenues, continue to support their intended purpose. This is a standard municipality practice and can be easily implemented as part of the transition. In summary, dissolving the parking authority and creating a parking department under Public Works allows for better coordination, greater oversight, and more transparent use of funds, all while maintaining uninterrupted service for Fairfield's commuters. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm hoping that no members of the body want to comment before maybe we go to the public, since they've been all waiting here patiently. If no one has any objections, I'm going to ask members of the public first who are here in person. If you want to speak, you can come up to the podium, state your name and address. You'll have 2 minutes to speak.
My name is John Territson. I live at 89 Westway Road. I was here as president of the Southport Conservancy. More than 30 years ago, the Southport Conservancy rehabilitated and saved the Southport Freight Station, Railroad Freight Station, which is the third structure that the parking authority leases from the state, in addition to the 2 train stations. For that 30-year period, for more than 30 years, we were responsible for maintaining that freight station. We saved it and we invested in it. A few years ago, I learned that in a telephone call with the parking authority that we had lost our lease on that freight station through inadvertence, without noticing it, and that we were done, that we were out. I've learned tonight the irony of that termination, given what I've heard about the parking authority's own expiration and loss of its lease from the state. We are eager. On that telephone call with the parking authority, I mentioned that we were eager to revive that lease and to continue carrying the costs of that station and its maintenance. And I was told that was of no interest to the parking authority, because the parking authority had its own, it was able to draw on town personnel to do that work, and it didn't care. So we left it. We walked away. We settled up with the parking authority and left it. I believe that treatment would not have happened if the parking authority was part of town government and more responsive to residents of the town and not focused solely on serving the needs of commuters. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Next person, if you want to come up, state your name, you'll have 2 minutes. Name and address, you'll have 2 minutes. to push the push button and hold it the whole time you're speaking.
Be this one here. Or what?
At the bottom, it says push, I believe, on that microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
great. All right. I just want to provide a little color on this Southport Conservancy. My name is Jack Franz, and I live at 2760 Congress Street. Like John, I'm a member of the board of the Southport Conservancy. I've been on that board on and off since 1995. My first meeting of the Southport Conservancy was at the ribbon cutting of the freight station. I was not much involved in that project, but I was very good friends with Mike Heslin, the builder, and Bob Hatch, the architect. Bob Hatch was the architect who restored the Bronson Windmill and the Victorian Cottage on the town green. If Bob was paid any money for the plans, I'm sure it wasn't much. Mike also did this as a labor of love, as he did other projects for Bob at the time. I was able to find some of Mike's recollections, and he shared them with me. When we did the work back in the early 90s, we redid the foundation, we lifted the structure, we excavated new foundations, we sandblasted the fire chart framing. There had been a fire there earlier. Windows were repaired, siding repaired and replaced, roofing was stripped. Bob Hatch insisted that the wainscoting not be removed and that the contractor had to stuff the insulation behind it because it was historic. Mechanicals were done.
Hold the microphone a little closer to you.
All night. Okay. As it stands now, the freight station is the only significant remnant of the industrial past on that side of the old post road. You can still see a spur of the old track that was serving Buckingham Fuel in the old coal shed.
And I'm just going to ask you to wrap it up. Sorry.
Anyway, my own involvement has been on the House and Grounds Committee. And just recently, I think right before COVID, we spent $8,500 putting a new roof and painting the building. And the reason that building looks the way it does is because of our involvement. We could never get an ear with the parking authority. And we just, whatever happens tonight, we want to be able to go to somebody and get results. We put all this money in, we're willing to keep doing it. And we're very frustrated with what's happened in the past.
Thank you. Thank you for commenting. Next person, if you want to come on up, state your name and address. Of 2 minutes.
Okay. Do I have the button? Okay. Judy Proctor, 428 Pequot Avenue, Southport, encouraging you all to vote in favor of this transition as been presented by the administration. For all the reasons of efficiency, financial soundness and transparency. And we as residents of Southport feel the new structure serves a broader purpose. Our relationship as Fairfield residents with town departments holds the implicit bond that town employees and we will work together. This has not been the case with the current structure. It's caused lots of friction in our neighborhood over the years. What projects are on the board? Is the project driven by the DOT or the parking authority? Who do we contact? In 2023, a shipping container was installed from across from Pachi. We neighbors anticipated it would be temporary and used by the DOP for machinery to repair the track. It's now clear it's permanent and it's used by Pachi for storage. The property is within a historic district and frankly, I think we all can agree that a shipping container is unsightly and inappropriate as a gateway to one of Fairfield's historic gems, Southport Village. It's my feeling that if the town parking department had overseen this property, they would, I believe, have been sensitive to the aesthetics and the interests of the community. So thanks.
Thank you. The next member, anyone in the public that wants to come up and speak?
Good evening. My name is Brian Haberly. I live in Fairfield. I'm a commuter. I take the train almost every day. I do not know what people are talking about with trash on the parking lot. I have never seen trash on the parking lot or on the platforms. I don't have any idea where that's coming from. My position, I believe that you are violating your own rules and public notice by saying you can change an item on your agenda when it says to hear and consider, and you're not going to vote, and then say now we're going to act upon. So you have violated the notice to the public. But there's a huge problem here. Month-to-month lease does not mean no lease. You've got the Fairfield station, you've got the Southport station. The Southport station has a lease in effect, which does not expire until 2032. The Fairfield station has a lease which is currently operating on a month-to-month. That doesn't mean there's no lease. It means it's a month-to-month lease. The moment you dissolve the parking authority, those leases are gone. The leases between the parking authority and the state. So if you dissolve those leases, if you dissolve the parking authority, you have no more lease. And now the town will have to see if they can enter into a lease with the state. The state in the email in response to this did not say, oh, we are willing to enter into a lease with the town. They said we're taking no position on the dissolution of the authority. And then they said, if you dissolve the authority, you have to enter into a new lease. Somebody will. We take the position that that lease is gone. So there is no more lease. And somebody will have to enter into a new lease with the state, since the state owns the parking lots. Don't shake your head. That's wrong. It's dead wrong. They're not transferable. You can't transfer these leases. They evaporate the moment you dissolve the parking authority.
If you
and you have no commitment from the state that they are willing to enter into a lease with the town. That is their huge problem. Thank
you. The next member, if you want to come on up.
Suzanne Miska, 123 Rygate Road. Transparency, efficiency. These are words you've been throwing around all night. And yet, when we got an agenda as a member of the public, we were told that we would have a chance to speak, but there was not a vote to be taken. And yet here we are, and you have decided that you're going to silence the very public that you have been elected to represent. And I find that non-transparent, non-accountable, and not efficient. And let me just remind you, while you all might have faith in the administration that is currently at hand, let's go backwards. Metro Center. Ring bells? Penfield Pavilion, how many times? Oh, DPW in charge of Phil Pyle. Phil Pyle ends up at Penfield Pavilion. These are the things that we have decided we're going to trust an administration on, instead of you doing your due diligence, which we, as members of the public, elected you to do. You don't need to represent us. You don't need to stand here and be our voice. You can end run that because you believe in the first selectman. You believe in an administration that just told you that for 8 months they looked at this, and yet, oh, that's right, we're what, on the second version of this? Oh, and with all due respect, your last meeting, the microphone didn't work. You started at 11 o'clock, and you were incapable of hearing a darn thing you were saying. So please, don't think the public knows what's going on, because you've made it very, very easy that we can't know what's going on. And that's shameful.
If you
That's
stop
not
wrapping it
efficient.
up. Start, thank you.
Not a problem. That's not efficient. That's not, this just sounds like an $30,000. And so, well, you can invite the public and they actually come and show up. But a town hall meeting, he said, this is not a case for politics. It's a case for policy. And when we start putting politics and stop treating this like a football game, benefiting one member, whether it's your teams or the other teams.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you to wrap it up.
Not a problem. Then this is not going to bode well for the town of Fairfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members from the public that would like to speak? I think online we have a Mr. Kramer. If you want to unmute yourself, Mr. Kramer, and you'll have 2 minutes. And just state your name and address.
Yes, Jeff Kramer at 69 Round Hill Drive. Am I allowed to ask a couple questions?
No, members cannot respond. You can comment. You can say you have questions, but no one can directly respond to your questions. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll take it that direction. I guess for First Selectman Bill Gerber, if the parking authority does become a town department, I guess given the need to that, the commuters would no longer need to pay the $120,000 to the town for shared services. There's the apparent $2 million surplus generated by the parking authority. And I guess I pose the question: will you work to reduce commuter rates, rates for commuters and the stores that are at the different stations? Will the fees you charge be based on costs and not to generate excess revenue? If we move the parking authority to a town department, is there a way to isolate those revenues into a different fund and not the general fund, effectively an escrow for commuter funds, so we know that everyone can feel comfortable that we're being charged an appropriate rate and for appropriate services at the stations? I guess if not, this effectively becomes a tax on commuters to fund other projects around town that really should be funded by town taxpayers, not town commuters, which are also town taxpayers, and effectively makes this a double taxation. So I too am saddened by the lack of due diligence, namely with the state after the ongoing Roger Ludlow Middle School soccer field debacle. I guess I would have thought or hoped that would have been a catalyst for enhanced due diligence by the First Selectman's office. And this authority was created 50 years ago because there was a need while it was operated under town management. I guess I'm just, I'm wondering why we think it'll be any different this time. It's been working well, and without much upside, it's just very clear downside potentially for commuters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and just real quick, commuters don't have a choice to park anywhere else, so we're really at mercy of whatever the fees are that are set. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll move it back to the body. Are there any other comments that have not already been stated by the body? Is there?
Can I just say one thing? Matt Ambrose, District 10.
Yes, Representative Ambrose.
Everybody's talking about oversight and transparency, accountability. I know for a fact that 20 years ago, when I would commute into the city, the daily parking pass was like $6. I looked it up and found out that today, for daily parking pass, it's $6.50. So that's only a 50 cent increase, and that's what I just found. It seems like it seems very reasonable to me. I mean, if you're going at 3% per year as an increase, I mean, you're looking at maybe should be $11, maybe $10 for a daily parking pass right now. but it's not. It's $6.50. It seems to me that operating at with a $2 million surplus, I mean, it seems like they're pretty efficient. They know what they're doing. I trust them. The parking lots are clean. And every single year, unlike the town of Fairfield, every single year, our taxes are going up, mill rates going up, everything's going up. This is something that's been solid. It's been steady. It's been active for 50 years. And I believe that we're rushing into a mistake. I like the semi-autonomous nature of the parking authority, and I vote to keep it as it is, and vote no against. I'll vote no. Thank you.
Motion now. According to Rule 36, we can't start a new motion after 11 o'clock, and we still have the turf field on our, right, the golf, it's a late night. So I believe according to Rule 36, at this time, we have to make a motion to extend the rule to include that past 11 o'clock. Unless we can take a vote real quickly. Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna take it to a vote and we're gonna take a roll call vote. Thank you. So I wanted to just restate item number 23 as amended, to hear and consider and act upon the following amendments to the Vehicle and Traffic Ordinance, Chapter 102 of the Town Code, to take effect as of July 1st, 2025, sponsored by Dave Rock, District 2, and Liz Zezima, District 4. The title of Article 1 of Chapter 102 is hereby amended as follows. Article 1, Parking Authority is stricken. Operation of vehicles, Section 102, creation of authority purpose is hereby repealed. I will now take it to a vote.
Ken Astorita? Peter Britton? No. Melissa Longo? Megan McCloat? Dave Rock? Chris Shea? No. Bob Ellinger? Mike Hardigan? Yes. Jeff Steele? Cindy Waldron? Yes. Laura Carson? Michelle McCabe? Marcy Spallier? Yes. Liz Zezima?
Yes.
Josh Garskoff? Kristen O'Neill? Sharon Pastilli? Jay Walk? Rob Blanchard? Nancy Donnie?
Yes.
Eric Juniak? Alex Ocampo?
Yes.
Steve Barretts?
Yes.
Lori Galdenzi? John Kuhn? Scott Nickel? Lenny Bremen?
Yes.
Chris Carroll? Colin Colburn? Christine Ludwizak? Drew Georgiadis? Lisa Havey? Mark McDermott?
Yes.
Karen Wackerman?
Yes.
Matt Ambrose? See him? See?
Ambrose, Representative Wagner, Representative Ambrose, sorry. If you want to type in your chat, your vote, if you are muted for some reason and can't unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. No.
Thank you. Justin Contrado? Margaret Horton? Pierre Latsky? Motion passes 28 in favor, 9 opposed, 1 abstention.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to quickly move on to item number 20. Move back to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled a resolution appropriating $1,500,000 for the cost of the H. Smith Richardson Golf Course, Carl J. Dickman Par 3 Golf Course, and H. Smith Richardson Driving Range renovations project, and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation be and hereby is approved. Do I have a motion? Representative Pistilli, seconded by Representative Galdenzi. Is there any, is Mr. Calabrese online? Mr. Calabrese doesn't appear to have responded to this, so, yes. No, but then you redid it to consider it after the parking authority, just in case we could get an answer from Mr. Calabrese to come on board. So you can, Mr. Calabrese is not here, so if you would like to come back up, or Representative Kuhn would like to come back up and make the motion to postpone again, we could certainly do that. I believe at the Board of Finance meeting. We don't need to waive the rule of 11 because we started this item just in time for 11. But if we go past 11:30, we do have to waive the rule to keep going. So.
John Kuhn, District 7. I make a motion to delay the vote until we hear from Anthony on the request I made of him last week for what the golf department had looked at in terms of alternatives for the cart path. He had promised to have a report to us tonight, and I do not see him, so I'd like to move the vote until we get that.
Do I have a second? Representative Carroll, any discussion on the motion to postpone? I'm sorry, can you postpone to a date certain, which would be the next regular meeting? April 28th.
Okay, and if I don't get his report by then, I can push it again?
You can, or you could just decide to vote accordingly.
Okay, so I will postpone it. I make a motion to postpone the vote until our next scheduled meeting.
Which is April 28th.
Which is April 28th.
Thank you. Do I have a second again? Representative Carroll again. Is there any discussion on the motion to postpone? We'll take the motion to postpone to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Representative Steele, Representative Britton, anyone online opposed to? Okay, thank you. Ms. Flora, before you leave, I just want to say thank you so much. And next year, just remind me that if we ask you to come before us for the budget, you get first dibs. So just remind me, please, via email. Thank you. All right. I was trying to find my notes where it says we have all the budget meetings next week. We have 3 budget meetings next week. If you have not gotten your budget books yet, I encourage you, there's 3 left. I'm not sure exactly who those belong to. You could contact me. I'll take them and you can contact me. The last item on our agenda is to consider and act upon any other matters presented. Again, I would like to remind everyone that in April, we have 5 meetings. Budget hearings occur on April 7th, Wednesday, April 9th, and Thursday, April 10th. You can find the schedule online. Betsy, our town clerk, will also send that out tomorrow. She just didn't want to confuse us with anything additional before this meeting. Our committee meeting is April 21st and our regular meeting is April 28th. I did send an email out last week with the budget hearing schedule. The schedule looks to be very busy. And I'm going to ask that for first time questions on each budget line item, that each member only ask 2 questions before giving another opportunity to another member, like what Representative Steele did last time, and then he kind of got stolen from him. So I appreciate that. And then you will certainly, after each member has been able to speak, can go back and answer as many questions as you need, given that they're not repeat questions. And I remind you also, you can certainly ask any budget questions through me, and I will try to get those answers for you. Is there any matters to be presented? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Representative Sherry, seconded by Representative Nichols. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. We'll see everyone next week.